I do think that there is a real fear from a lot of the politicians that this is something that would disrupt everything from the stock market to religious beliefs. Even though they believe, the Pleiadians at least believe in creation, it would still be disruptive all around.
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again this week. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Today, we are talking mystical. We're exploring the universe with Brit Elders. Brit is an investigative author and a filmmaker who has done substantial research on UFO contact. Welcome, Brit.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Brit, you have published a book specifically on Pleiades and contact that we have had with them already. Can you give us a little bit of background about that whole experience that you've gone through?
Sure. The book is titled UFO Contact from the Pleiades, Volumes 1 and 2, and it's the 45th anniversary edition from the original release of the books. It's about a case that involves a man in Switzerland, Eduard Billy Meier, and the contacts that he had with beings that said they came from the Pleiades. The contacts for Meier began in 1975. And our investigation of his work went on for 7 years. And the reason it took so long to do a really thorough investigation was his contact case was one of the few that actually had physical evidence. We had photographs, movie footage, sound recordings of the craft, which were quite unique, and metal samples. So all of that had to go to laboratories around the world to be analyzed to determine if it was a hoax, how was he hoaxing it? The interesting thing was that during that time frame, the 1970s, especially the late 70s, we didn't have personal computers. We didn't have cell phones where you could take incredible photographs. We didn't have Photoshop and programs that you could use to alter photographs. So it was something that was just beginning to take hold in the world, but it wasn't there yet. When we went over to find out more about this case, and we did have a professional investigative firm, when we went over and talked to Meier the first time, he had no running water in his house, much less a computer. So it was sort of like, wow, okay. We went through the house, we went through the farm, looked at everything. There was nothing that indicated a hoax. Then he gave us all of this material, physical evidence. And that's the thump on it stuff that scientists like. So we brought it back to the United States. We started running analysis of it, the photographs originally, then the movie footage and the sounds. We found audio engineers that were more than willing to take a look at it. And we sent the metal samples up to IBM and Marcel Vogel. He brought in 42 different scientists to help him better understand what he was seeing under the scanning electron microscope. And they couldn't explain it because it had metal and then a crystalline structure and then more metal. And the metal had thulium, which is a rare earth element that you just don't normally go out and buy anywhere. It has to be extracted, and it is very costly. So the scientists up in Sacramento were all shaking their heads saying, we don't know what this is, but we can't make it here. That's how the evidence was playing out. We can't do it now. Yeah.
Now, was this a one-time contact?
The contacts went on for a number of years. The point to the contacts was to get humans to realize they're not the only thinking beings in the universe. And that's why they presented all of the evidence to Meier, who then gave it to us. They're still going on. Meier is still having contact. not like he was, and they're not presenting physical evidence anymore. They said, how much do you need? Which is understandable. So we had what we had. We worked with it. We released our original findings. I don't think the world was in the space that it is now, where it's more interested and curious about these things. Back then, it was like, oh yeah, UFOs, don't talk about it in public. In private, it was okay, but don't discuss it in public. Now it's an open conversation.
How did Billy know they were from Pleiades?
They told him. When he had his first contact, he was sitting in the kitchen in the farm, and he got this cooling sensation across his head. And then he heard a voice that told him to get on his moped and go out into the field. And they directed him to the area they wanted him to go to. He's standing there. He started to hear this very strange sound, and he looked up and hears this disc-shaped craft. It hovered for a while, and then it dropped down to the ground. Then a woman got out, and they say they use women because if you're having a contact with a man, the man is less likely to be aggressive towards a woman. So she walked out, sat down, and they had their first conversation under a tree.
And no language barrier.
No language barrier for two reasons. First of all, she had studied Swiss German. They had been studying Billy Meier for 10 years before they initiated this contact. And she had studied Swiss German. She knew the language well. But when she had a problem, she had a language translator, much like we have on our phones today. Back then, they didn't exist, but today we have them, and they're great. It enabled them to get deeper into things, and the conversations were quite spiritual quite often. It wasn't just about, this is who we are, and we know who you are, and that type of thing. They said they were here because their forefathers are our forefathers. So they talked about seeding the planet. They talked about how a spiritually developing person has to balance the technical world in which they live and the spiritual knowledge which they live within. So all of this type of information was really important and was coming through. It's, granted, information we can't authenticate, but Meier took copious notes and transcribed these conversations once he got back to the farm. It's something he has had that personal experience. Everything else, the physical thumb-on-it evidence, supports what he's saying. So that is sort of the balance and the credence to both sides.
Did they mention at all why they chose Billy?
Yes, they said that they recognized his incarnation patterns, and that at some point he had been a Pleiadian, had that same vibration, that same frequency. They understood it, and that's why they initiated the contacts.
So interesting, so interesting. How did it change his life?
Oh boy. When we first arrived, the very first day we showed up in Switzerland, there was a film crew from Zurich in filming him, questioning him about the contacts. Words spread like wildfire through Europe, and people started coming into the farm. They demanded his attention. They basically put him on a pedestal. Oh, you're so special because you had these contacts. Billy Meier is a man. He's just like anyone else that has problems and life issues. He's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. The Pleiadians say they are also not perfect, so they're evolving and developing as well. All of us are. And people didn't want to see that. They wanted to see him as something extreme, kind of a Messiah image, which was difficult for Billy and for his family. It was very difficult on his family. And then there were some people that tried to assassinate him, that just felt it was too extreme for them. They couldn't understand the potential of contacts. And he had a number of people take pot shots at him. One time we were there when that happened. We were there another time when a van pulled up next to his young daughter and tried to kidnap her. It was, yeah, it's been a little intense and quite scary for him. But he's basically a humble man, pulls back and just sort of says, well, this is life. And, if I send love to them and ignore them, they'll go away. He has that great attitude of just don't let it bother you, just move forward.
Oh, incredible. I would expect that it would also change his understanding of how the universe and life works.
It has tremendously. He's not educated as we think of school type education, but he's worldly. He's traveled through Europe, he's traveled through the Middle East. He has a lot of worldly knowledge. He's quite intelligent. He's in a position where he looks at things one way on a physical realm, but then he has to look at it from what his friends, his contacts are telling him, and sort of weigh the two and find his own space. He is growing and developing tremendously. I was laughing yesterday. We had a Zoom call, and he looks healthy. He's happy. He's in his 80s now and doing quite well. But he has this calm about him now that I did not see originally. Originally, it was sort of frantic, and I think a lot of that was because of the people around him coming in, and they came from all over the world to talk to him, trampled his gardens, demanded his time. It was difficult. So now he's got this really centered space and presence that is quite beautiful.
Was he ever taken aboard their craft?
Yes. Not like an abduction of what we, especially here in the West, think of as an abduction. He willingly went. It was a contact where he would go, and he was given the opportunity to be on board the craft. In the book, there is a photograph that he said was taken from one craft looking at two others out in space. A very interesting picture. But these are things that we don't know, but it doesn't take away from the case, in my opinion. In fact, it sort of adds to it. Okay, that makes sense. But he saw things. He came back from one trip and reported all of these moons around Jupiter. And this is back in the 70s before Voyager was there. And he said there is a moon of fire and there is a moon of ice. A couple of years later, NASA comes out and says, we have a moon of fire and a moon of ice. So all of these different little tidbits that he got while he was in space and during his conversations with the Pleiadians added so much to the contact case itself.
It's just fascinating. Fascinating indeed. Did they have any particular message that they wanted to share with humanity, or some type of guidance about the transformation that was at our doorstep?
Yes. The first primary message was that we are not the only thinking beings in the universe. And that was given because they know we're moving into space exploration. But in order to take a respectful place there, we have to be respectful of all of those other cultures out there. And we don't want to carry along our garbage with us. And that means our emotional garbage and everything else, our anger, our fear, our warlike tendencies. We have to learn how to balance that. We have to develop in a way that we open our hearts more so than our minds. Our spirit needs to be in balance. We need to recognize creation in all that exists. We need to just be more present in the consciousness that we're all related. Everything on this earth is a part of creation, and not get so involved in all of the aspects of fighting and anger and the negative side to the emotions that we carry with us.
All tenets of spirituality, and yet if you look at humanity, sometimes it seems like we're very far away from that.
Yes, we're growing. We're like little kids. And we got to fall down and skin our knees and figure out what we're doing wrong. And we need to get to that point of understanding where we can change.
So if we go back to some of the information you've already given us, the Earth being seeded specifically by Pleiadians, does that mean there wasn't life forms here before, or perhaps there were other alien cultures as well that also seeded?
Yes, there were other alien cultures as well as Pleiadians that seeded the planet, but there were other life forms here already. And it was working with them and helping them develop. When you go into the history of, and I'm not just talking ancient astronaut stuff, this is deep dive history. All cultures have a relationship to star beings, people that came from the stars. And these people imparted things that would improve their life, didn't change their life forever and ever. You know, we're going to make it perfect for you. They don't do that. They want us to grow and develop on our own. But they would give them little keys. Like in the Inca civilization, they taught them how to better farm corn and things like that. In China, they did other things. In Africa, they did other things. And they were all different beings. It was the Pleiades primarily, Arcturus, Sirius, A and B, even the little grays from Betelgeuse had something to contribute and are mentioned in the lore and myth of all of these ancient cultures.
Do you think there were ever any alien contact of unsupportive or unfriendly aliens?
Yes, I do. And I think a lot of those we label abductions. Some abductions people seem to agree to because they'll see something, they'll get out of their car and they'll walk towards it, inviting communication or an abduction or a contact. But I do think that just like this planet, what's happening in the universe is also developing and growing, and not everyone is as evolved as they should be.
Do you think it's happening as often as it was back in the 70s and 80s?
More so. Absolutely more so. A perfect example is what's going on in Mexico, not the contacts, but the sightings. Mexico has had wave after wave of UFO sightings to the point that the people of this little town outside Mexico City, it has 100,000 population, they all get together and climb this hill called Casita Blanca and go look at the UFOs. They wait for them to come in. It's just a normal part of life. They grab the kids and grandma and grandpa in their beer cooler and go sit in their chairs and wait. It's happening everywhere. But in this country especially, and I hate to say this, it breaks my heart to say this, we're a little backwards. We still are dealing with how much fear is this going to bring on the people, and we've got to cloak it under national security. Other countries have been much more forthcoming in their research and what they've discovered, what they've seen, what they've recorded, and they've released it to the public. Brazil is a good example. The UK has done it. France has done it. Italy has done it. And we're still saying we got to hold a hearing in Congress to find out if they're good or bad. Yeah, well, there's both.
Do you think any of this reluctance might have something to do with no longer being top dog?
Yeah, possibly, yes. And I do think that there is a real fear from a lot of the politicians that this is something that would disrupt everything from the stock market to religious beliefs. Even though they believe, the Pleiadians at least believe in creation, it would still be disruptive all around. And I think it's more geared towards what it would do to the stock market and the monetary system if suddenly there were contact and we were very, very open about it.
Interesting. Money is everywhere, right?
Oh boy, yeah. There's a balance again. You have to achieve that balance. Yeah.
Why did you jump into this investigation and putting out this book?
When we originally did the book back in 79, we decided, okay, we've done all of this. It's preliminary, but the people need to know what's going on. They need to know that something out there has thump-on-it evidence that supports extraterrestrial life. So we did the first book, then we followed it with the second book with more of the information that was coming out from the scientific analysis and more of the information from the contacts. And then time went by, we got busy doing many, many other things and different investigations as well as normal business things. And we decided not too long ago, I was talking to the publishers, and they said, how do you feel about bringing the books back out through Beyond Words, their company? And I said, I would love it. The time is right. Because there is this newer generation, these young kids with such open minds, and they have to take their place in space eventually, because we're moving in that direction. We're headed towards Mars. We've got our sights further out in the universe. They need to be aware that there are others out there. We have to be respectful of ourselves and of them as we progress forward. And they're open-minded. They're just, I know a lot of these kids are starseeds, and they're just curious. They just devour anything they can get that leads them into a new thought process. They are thinkers, and we need them in the world today.
From a consciousness standpoint, do you think humanity is ready to be out in space and interacting with other aliens?
I think there are some, but I think it's limited, unfortunately. We're not there yet. We're infants compared to some of these other civilizations. We don't have our own understanding of who we are, much less understanding what the universe is all about. So we're playing in the sandbox, but we're, still with tinker toys. We haven't gotten to the point of really fully comprehending what it's going to mean when we do get out there, and how what we do here on this tiny little beautiful planet that we live on affects everything out there. It's that butterfly effect. It's the ripple in the water. If we do something horrid here, it's going to affect throughout. If we do something wonderful here, that same effect carries throughout. So we have to become better people so we can take our place in space.
And perhaps that's one reason why these civilizations are so interested in what's happening.
I definitely think so. Billy said there's, and this is back in 75, 108 different civilizations visiting Earth at that time. And there's probably more now. But it's something that they're curious. They want to see what we're doing with ourselves. Are we improving? Are we not improving? Which sometimes you sort of get that feeling we're moving backwards instead of forwards. They're hoping we do move forward.
Well, what are your thoughts on the government and this whole situation? It seems like they're softening a little bit and maybe releasing the odd photograph of things they can't explain.
I think they're trying to appease both sides. The side that would be frightened by a potential contact, and the side like the Navy Tic Tac video, that these guys, these pilots are out there saying, this is what we saw. And no, it's not a hallucination. It's on our FLIR camera. They're being so adamant about it. They want it out there. They want people to realize we don't have this capability, and we really don't think our adversaries have that capability either, of flying so fast and of changing directions so rapidly. So I think they're trying to appease both sides. I don't think it's going to work. I think eventually they're going to have to be more open and receptive to what people are experiencing. I have something that I learned through the case is that you cannot hold judgment when someone has an experience, because that's their experience. That's what they know to be true for them. I can only listen to it and hopefully correlate it to something else. I think our government needs to get there. They're taking this view now that they want to gather all of these stories of sightings and contacts and all of that. And yet they come out a couple of weeks after they open up the phone lines and say, gee, we can explain it all. I'm certain that they can't. There's many things out there that cannot be explained, and they just need to be more receptive. And I think that it would start changing a lot.
I would definitely say it's a little more challenging to get hardcore proof nowadays, especially with the way you can alter video and photographs.
And AI coming out, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. But back in the 70s, when this first came to light, and especially because they have samples of the metal, it's pretty concrete evidence.
It is, and looking back on it now, it's probably even more substantial. Because at that point, we were trying to figure out how he did it, if he manufactured all of this, and if it was hoax. How did he do it? What did it cost him? We brought in a special effects man, Wally Gentleman. He worked with Kubrick on 2001. He was well known in the industry, had won Oscars, all kinds of awards. He couldn't duplicate it. He made us a model. He hung it on a string. We photographed it. As soon as it hit the computers compared to what Billy had taken, you could see there was an edge difference. One was small, one was large. You could find the string on the model, nothing on Meier's photographs. So it was like, wow, this would cost him a fortune. It was impossible for him to have done it at that point in time because we just did not have the technology available to the public.
And why would he want to?
Yeah. Oh, it turned his life upside down. It was rough on the kids, on his whole family just suffered from it until he finally found his space and said, no, we're not going to just wander through the gardens talking. You're going to help me work, and I'll talk to you when we're in the fields. Otherwise, no, I'm busy. It was really good. I was glad he took that stand.
Oh, it's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. How interesting. So, have you personally spoke with some abduction cases, and how did you feel about them?
I have talked to a lot of people that have felt that they were abducted. And I would say about 50% of those that I talked to after I said, did you get out of your car? Did you walk towards it? Did you invite consciously or unconsciously contact? 50% of the people got it. The other 50% really felt that it was a negative experience, that it was something to be afraid of. It altered their life. I understand that. I understand what they went through. You're just emotionally wrapped up in what they're saying because, again, there's no physical evidence, but you have to take their story as to something that is impacting their life. No matter what anybody else thinks about it, it has affected them. And so listening to these people, they've got a lot to recover from, and it is really difficult for them to go through it. But the ones that said, gosh, I did get out of my car and walk towards that craft and stood there and looked up at it and then found myself on board. Oh, maybe I was contacted and not abducted. I was knocking on their door. And so they started to shift how they viewed it, and they lost the fear and the anxiety that it created.
What would you do, Britt, if you came face to face with an alien starship? Would you get out of your car and
I would. I have to admit, I would. I would be saying, okay, I'm knocking on your door now. Let's have a conversation. My list of questions for them is miles long. It would be nonstop. I'm afraid I would probably drive them crazy. I have seen things I cannot explain. I've seen things in Mexico. I've seen things in Switzerland. I don't know what they are. But if someone showed up in a big, beautiful, beaming UFO and said, let's have a talk, I would absolutely jump on board. Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit about the appearance of the aliens?
Sure.
How did they look?
When Sunyasa, who was the female cosmonaut that got out, when she walked towards Billy, he said that she seemed to sort of flow with grace. It was just a very fluid movement. And she had long blonde hair, she had blue eyes, and her complexion, he said, was almost translucent. It had just a radiance about it that you don't see on Earth. They sat down and they talked for a few hours, and then she left. And then she came back, and those contacts continued for a long, long time, and he's still having contact today.
Did he encounter any male of the
He
species?
did. He encountered Pleiadians by the name of Tha and Quetzal, and they were very masculine in appearance, beard, longer hair. One had darker hair. One, Tha was an older man. It was just like talking to a human. The difference was this: they could only spend a certain amount of time in the presence of humans because they said humans have auric stench. I just love that term. But they can't take our frequencies for long periods of time. So the conversations were limited as to what they did when they met with Meier here on Earth.
So they could breathe oxygen?
Yes, they did breathe oxygen while they were here. When they had a homeland originally, it was in the star system of Lyra. They actually created something similar to a nuclear war between warring factions on that planet. They destroyed their home planet. They had to then go to the Pleiades, and they found a planet that they could engineer that would support them. So they had to engineer, create a planet that had the type of atmosphere they could breathe. But for a small period of time, yes, they can breathe air like we do.
Britt, was there any talk about crop circles in their messages?
Yes, there actually was. Back in the 70s when Billy's contacts were beginning, crop circles were just getting started and getting noticed. And they said, yes, it was the energy vortexes of the ships that were creating these designs. And they had messages in them. And it was like giving a kid a new toy that we got to decode what those messages could possibly mean. It wasn't necessarily from the Pleiadians. They never identified who was actually doing them. But yes, there were many that talked about, many contactees that talked about what was going on in the crop circles and why they were doing them to get our attention again, to wake us up a little bit.
Well, the thing that steps into my mind is how technologically advanced they are.
3,000 years is what they claim. So, and we're moving ahead. I mean, we're moving at great speed at this point. The problem with our technology is outstripping our spirituality. It's outstripping the balance of where we need to be as individuals because we're so locked into it. But it's like a new toy that will wear off at some point and we'll start working on ourselves again.
Did they give any tips about how we could develop our spirituality or our connection?
They did. They said, first of all, appreciate everything that's around you. Appreciation is a big deal. Appreciate Earth as the mother, the nurturer that cares for you. And to appreciate yourself, which we don't do enough of. And that's not being egotistical. That's not being any of that. It's knowing that your inner work is as valuable as anything you do on the outside. So meditation, balancing your diets, eating properly to maintain the physical body, and nurturing the spirit through reading, through, like I said, meditation is a primary one. Yeah.
Any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today, Britt?
Wow, I just hope everybody enjoys this and doesn't judge from the standpoint of it is or it isn't, but there's information in there that everybody can take something from, and that's of value. And all of this, you can find out more on my website, Brit, B-R-I-T, Elders.
It's been absolutely fascinating, Britt. Thank you so much for being my guest and for sharing this information with all of us.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed this. It's been a good conversation.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com, pick up your copy of Learning to Listen, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.